My sister got engaged to my ex who almost killed me, but when he cheated on her a week before the wedding, my family begged for my forgiveness and money, and my answer left them broken. I'm 29 years old, work in digital marketing, and honestly never thought the day would come when I'd have to cut contact with my entire family, but here we are. What happened like a year and a half ago basically made me realize that sometimes the people who share your blood can be the most toxic in your life, you know? And that hurts more than I can explain. I guess I should start at the beginning, when I met Derek like 6 years ago. I was 23 when I met him at a bar, and honestly at first he seemed normal, like a regular guy who worked in construction and had his stuff together. Or at least that's what I thought. We dated for like 3 months. Nothing serious, really. And then I found out I was pregnant. I don't know. It was a total shock because we were using protection. But these things happen, I guess. When I told him, Derek got super intense about the marriage thing. Like he was pressuring me every day saying we had to do it for the baby, that his family was very religious and I couldn't have a child out of wedlock. And I was scared and confused and basically agreed because I thought it was the right thing to do. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The signs were all there, but I was so focused on doing what I was supposed to do that I didn't pay attention. We got married in a small courthouse ceremony. Nothing fancy. And at first everything seemed fine. But literally like 2 weeks after we got married, Derek started to change. First it was that he started coming home late smelling like alcohol. Then I discovered he was spending money on sports betting, like losing $200 or $300 a week on stupid stuff. I was 3 months pregnant at that point and working full-time at an office. I'd come home tired and he'd be lying on the couch playing video games. When I'd ask him about looking for work or helping around the house, he'd get angry and tell me I was a nag, that I was pressuring him too much, that I needed to relax. And I'm like, I'm pregnant and working 40 hours a week while you do nothing, and I'm the one who needs to relax? Things got worse when I was like 5 months pregnant. One night, I woke up with a horrible pain in my stomach, like I felt like something was very wrong, and I told Derek I needed to go to the hospital. He was drunk, had been drinking with his friends in the garage, and he told me I was exaggerating, that it was normal to feel pain during pregnancy. I insisted, told him this was different, that I really needed help, and he just yelled at me to let him sleep. I ended up calling an ambulance myself, and when I got to the hospital, the doctors told me I was having a miscarriage. I lost the baby that night, and Derek didn't even come to the hospital until the next day. When he arrived, he didn't ask me how I was, didn't console me, just told me it had probably been my fault for stressing too much at work. He said that if I had been a better wife and stayed home like I should have, the baby would be alive. Can you believe that? He blamed me for losing our baby. After the miscarriage, I fell into a deep depression. I kept working because we needed the money. Derek had lost his construction job like a month before for being late all the time, and now I was the only one bringing money home. He'd stay all day playing video games, like from 10 inches the morning until 3 inches the morning, and when I'd get home from work, he expected me to cook and clean everything. If I complained, he'd yell at me, tell me I was useless, that any other woman would be happy to have a man like him. I don't know how to explain what it feels like to be so mentally and physically exhausted that you consider that maybe it would be easier not to be here. You know what I mean? I tried to kill myself twice during that year. The first time I took a bunch of pills, but I threw up most of them and just ended up super sick. The second time I tried to cut my wrists in the bathtub, but I got scared halfway through and called emergency services. Derek was playing video games in the living room when the paramedics arrived. He didn't even notice something was wrong until they knocked on the door. Finally, after almost 2 years of marriage, I realized that if I didn't get out of there, I was going to die, literally or figuratively. I had been going to therapy in secret, using my work insurance, and my therapist helped me see that I was in an abusive relationship and that I needed to leave. One day, when Derek was particularly calm, I told him I wanted a divorce. The thing is, I didn't expect his reaction. He got up from the couch and hit me in the face so hard I fell to the floor. He had never hit me before. I mean, he yelled at me and insulted me all the time, but never physically violent until that moment. He kept hitting me, on my back, on my ribs, on my head, while I tried to cover myself and scream for help. Then he dragged me to the bedroom, threw me on the bed, and locked the door. He kept me there for like 6 hours, yelling at me that if I tried to leave him, he would kill me, that nobody else would want me, that I was a piece of shit person. Eventually, he fell asleep on the couch. He had been drinking during the whole beating, and I managed to escape through the bedroom window. I went straight to the neighbor's house, who was an older man like 70 years old who lived alone, and he called the police immediately. Derek was arrested that night. I had bruises all over my body, fractured ribs, a black eye that lasted weeks, and the doctors in the emergency room took pictures of everything for evidence. The judge gave him a restraining order and sent him to anger management classes as part of his probation. The divorce process was a nightmare. Derek tried to ask for alimony, arguing that I was the one making money and he was unemployed, but my lawyer used all the evidence of abuse and he ended up receiving nothing. And the divorce was finalized like 6 months after the incident, and I immediately moved to another city like 3 hours away. I changed my phone number, blocked Derek on all social media, basically cut all possible contact with him. The next 2 years were about rebuilding. I got a better job in digital marketing in my new city, started making pretty good money, and for the first time in years I felt like a real person again. I went to therapy religiously, like once a week without fail, and worked on processing all the trauma. My family, my parents, and my younger sister Ashley knew everything that had happened with Derek. My parents were already retired at that point, living off their pension and some savings, and Ashley, who was like 24, still lived with them, worked as a server at a local diner. Ashley had dropped out of school in 11th grade and had had problems with drugs when she was younger. Nothing super heavy, but my parents had spent a lot of money on rehab and stuff like that. I started sending them money every month, like $500 or $600, because their pensions weren't much and I wanted to help. I also sent Ashley extra money from time to time so she could buy clothes or whatever she needed. Everything was relatively fine until like a year and a half ago. One night, I get a video call from my parents, and they looked super excited, like with those big smiles you put on when you have good news. My mom starts saying that Ashley has something to tell me, and then Ashley appears on screen and extends her hand to show me an engagement ring. She was super happy, almost screaming, saying she was getting married, and that she had to tell me about her boyfriend. And then she said his name. Derek. My Derek. My abusive ex-husband Derek. I couldn't process what I was hearing. I asked her to repeat the name, thinking maybe I had heard wrong or it was another Derek, but no, it was him. Ashley explained that they had been dating for like 6 months, that he had come into the diner where she worked one day. They recognized each other because he knew me, and they started talking. According to her, Derek had told her that our marriage had been a mistake, that I was super controlling and abusive, that I had falsely accused him of violence to get the divorce and keep all his money or something like that, like literally reversed the whole story. And the worst part, is that my parents believed him. My dad was there on the call saying that Derek seemed like a good guy who had made mistakes in the past but had clearly changed, that he was going to therapy and working on himself. My mom added that maybe I had been too harsh with Derek, that marriages have problems, and there was no need to have dramatized things so much. I was literally paralyzed. I couldn't speak. I just felt like someone had thrown a bucket of ice water on me. I finally managed to say that Derek had beaten me, that he had kept me prisoner in my own house, that he had tried to kill me. And Ashley laughed. She laughed in my face and said, "Oh, please, Emily. You've always been so dramatic. You probably started the fights and then played the victim like you always do." She said Derek had shown her text messages from me where supposedly I was saying horrible things to him, which obviously were made up or taken out of context from when I'd ask him to look for work or help around the Puenis house, and that she believed him more than me. I told them to wait, that I had evidence of everything. I ran to my room and got my laptop, found all the medical photos from the hospital after the beating, the police reports, the restraining order, the records of the anger management classes the judge ordered him to take, everything. I came back to the video call and started showing them every document, every photo, explaining in detail what had happened. The photos were brutal, like my face was unrecognizable in some black and purple bruises all over my body. And I was literally crying while showing them all this, reliving it in my mind. And you know what Ashley did? She shrugged and said, "Well, clearly you did something to make him that angry. Nobody reacts like that without reason." Then, and this was what really broke me, she said, "Besides, you couldn't even keep your baby alive. So clearly there's something wrong with you, not with Derek." She used my miscarriage, the most traumatic and painful thing that had happened to me in life, as an argument against me. In that moment, something in me broke completely. My parents just stayed quiet, not defending me, not saying anything to stop Ashley. My dad eventually said that they had decided Derek was going to move in with them after the wedding to save money, while he and Ashley looked for their own place, and that they hoped I could get over my personal problems with him and be part of the family again. I told them, with the calmest voice I could manage, that if they allowed Derek into their house, if they supported this relationship after everything I had shown them, then I was cutting contact with all of them forever. No more monthly money, no more financial help, no more calls, nothing. My mom started crying, saying I was being cruel and selfish. That family was the most important thing, and I was destroying our relationship because of my ego. Ashley yelled at me that I was a resentful bitch who couldn't stand to see her happy. And my dad, my own dad, who was supposed to protect me, said I needed to grow up and leave the past behind. I hung up the call. I blocked their numbers, their emails, their social media, everything. 2 days later, I received like 30 messages from unknown numbers, all from Ashley and my parents using friends or work phones, begging me to reconsider, but not because they cared about my well-being. No, but because they needed the money I sent them every month. Ashley literally wrote in one of the messages, "You can be angry all you want, but still send us the money. It's not fair that you punish us financially for this." As if I owed them something. As if I had any obligation to finance their life while they supported the man who almost killed me. Like 2 months went by without hearing anything more from them. I blocked every new number that texted me, changed my personal email, and only gave the new one to my closest friends. I was starting to feel peace again. Like I was really processing the fact that I no longer had a biological family, but that it was okay. That I could build my own chosen family with friends and eventually a partner. And then, one morning I get a message on LinkedIn of all places, from my aunt, my mom's sister, who lives in another state and who I rarely talk to. The message said I needed to call her urgently, that it was about Ashley. I called her thinking maybe something bad had happened. I don't know. An accident or something. And my aunt tells me that Ashley had discovered Derek cheating on her with another server from the diner where she worked. Apparently they had been seeing each other behind Ashley's back for like a month. And she caught them when she went to drop off lunch for Derek at my parents' house one day. When she got off work early and found them literally in the guest bedroom. This was like a week before the wedding, you know. They had already sent out the invitations and everything. Ashley obviously canceled everything, kicked Derek out of the house screaming and crying, and now she was devastated. My aunt was calling me to tell me that the family thought I should be the bigger person, forgive and support Ashley in this difficult time. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told my aunt that Ashley had insulted me, had minimized my abuse, had used my miscarriage as a weapon against me, and had chosen to believe my abuser over me. I asked her why should I support someone who had been so cruel to me, and my aunt said something like, "Well, she was in love, and people do foolish things when they're in love. But now she understands that you were right about Derek." As if that fixed anything. As if now that Derek had hurt her, suddenly my experience was valid. When he only hurt me, I was the dramatic liar. But now that Ashley suffered consequences, oh, now Derek was the bad guy. I told my aunt no, to respect my decision to have no contact with that part of the family, and hung up. I blocked her number too. During the following weeks, several relatives started contacting me through different methods. Cousins I hadn't seen in years, uncles, even my parents' neighbor once. All with the same message, that the family needed me, that Ashley was suffering, that my parents were worried, that I should come back. I blocked everyone. Like 6 months after all this drama, I receive an email at my work address, which apparently someone had given them because I never gave it to them. It was from my dad. The email said he had had an accident at home, had fallen from a ladder trying to fix something on the roof, and had broken his hip. He needed surgery that cost like $15,000 because his insurance didn't cover everything, and they were in a desperate financial situation. The email was long, like 3 pages, and at some point it said something like, "I know we made mistakes with you and with the whole Derek situation, and we're very sorry, but you're our daughter and we need you now more than ever." It ended, asking if I could send money for the surgery and medical bills. I read the email like 5 times. The first time I felt guilt, like that automatic reflex of wanting to help your family when they're in trouble. But then I read it again and realized that at no point did the email really acknowledge what they had done. There wasn't a genuine apology for having believed Derek over me, for having minimized my abuse, for having supported him moving in with them, knowing what he had done to me. The apology was like, "We're sorry if we offended you," basically blaming me for being offended instead of accepting they had done something objectively horrible. And most obviously, they were only contacting me because they needed money. But they hadn't contacted me to see how I was, to rebuild the relationship, to show they had really changed their perspective. Just money. I didn't respond to the email. I didn't block it either, just left it there in my inbox unanswered. Part of me wanted to write a long response explaining exactly why I wouldn't help them, giving them a list of all the ways they had failed me. But honestly, I was already tired. I had already spent enough emotional energy on these people. The truth is, I came to understand something in those months of silence, that I didn't owe them anything. I didn't owe them forgiveness. I didn't owe them money. I didn't owe them my presence in their life. They had chosen to support my abuser over me, their own daughter and sister, and now they had to live with the consequences of that decision. Fast forward to now. It's been like 8 months since that email. I never responded, never sent money, and I've never had contact with any of them since then. I've heard through mutual acquaintances that my dad finally got the surgery through some government assistance program or something, that Ashley still lives with my parents and works at the same diner, and that Derek is apparently already with another girl. I don't know the details, and honestly, I don't care. I've built a really good life here in my city. I have a job I love. I make enough to live comfortably. I have incredible friends who are more family to me than my biological family ever was. And like 4 months ago, I started dating someone who is kind, respectful, and treats me like a valuable person. Sometimes, in random moments, I get sad thinking about what could have been. I imagine an alternative version where my parents believed me, where they supported me, where my sister defended me instead of attacking me. But then I remember that people show you who they really are when things get difficult, and they showed me that their comfort and desires were more important than my safety and well-being. And honestly, I'm at peace with that. Not in a way like I'm completely healed and never think about it, but more in a way of, this happened, it was horrible, and I'm not going to let it define the rest of my life. Last week, my therapist asked me if I would ever consider having contact with my family again, under the right circumstances. I told her honestly, I don't know. Maybe if they came with real apologies, with genuine acknowledgement of the harm they caused, with a deep understanding of why what they did was so unforgivable, and without expectations that I immediately forgive them and start sending them money again. But you know what? I'm not waiting for that to happen. I've stopped expecting things from them, and that, in itself, is liberating.